Hello, hello, and welcome to PD in your PJs. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. We have a great topic that's going to be perfect for middle school and high school teachers using Seesaw. You should hear me talking now. I do want to remind you that we're recording this session and you will receive that in an email shortly after we conclude. But most importantly, we'll send you the slides so then you can go back through those at your own convenience and click on any of the links or take a closer look at all the resources. We will try to take a few questions at the end. So as we're going tonight, if you think of something that you'd like to ask our presenter, you can just type it in the question box. I also want to ask you to please take a minute when we conclude to fill out the survey that will pop up on your screen. Before you close out of the webinar here in about a half hour, answer a few questions for us. We really love your feedback. It's how we make these sessions better. And then we pick one winner of a t-shirt randomly every week based on those survey responses. So be sure to enter or complete the survey for your chance to win the t-shirt. My name is Julie. You've probably heard me on these webinars before if you've been watching any in the recent past. I'm just out of the high school ELA classroom where I was a teacher for 18 years. I'm now on the teacher community team at Seesaw with Angela. You can find me on Twitter at EdTechJulieJ. This webinar tonight is going to be a lot of specific ideas for teachers of big kids. It's not going to really tell you how to get started or to set up your class or how to connect family members. So if you're looking for some of those basic things, be sure to visit ideas.seesaw.me to get started, or if you want to see a list of any of our past or upcoming webinars, go to web.seesaw.me/PDs. I'm so excited to be here with Jenny Godley. We just had a good visit for a few minutes before we kicked off the webinar. She's teaching in Washington at a 9 through 12 building, and she's going to have lots of great ideas to tell you about how she uses Seesaw in her science classroom. So Jenny, I'm going to click my button over here and change it to you to be the presenter. So be ready for that to come up on your screen. I see it. Okay, you're good. We can definitely see your screen.
All right. So you see that I'm not in presenter for you yet. How is that? Oh. Can you see what I'm seeing, or what do you see?
Yeah, I can see what you're seeing. Just click to present, and then you should be good to go.
Okay. Oh, so you can see my slides, or you can see...
I actually see the little thing that says questions appear here. So I don't know if you want to be in audience tools, but if you want to go into that other view, maybe.
Let me try this again. So
yeah. Yep, there you go. Yep, just hit that present button in the upper right there in Google. Yep, that one, and I think you will be good to go.
All right.
Perfect. We gotcha.
Okay, great. So welcome, everybody. My name is Jenny Godley. I teach in the state of Washington, just a little east of Seattle, and it is not letting me turn. Oh, there we go. In Seattle, and I've been teaching science, initially biology, but mostly chemistry with some physics for the last 15 years. I picked up a few 8th grade classes last year since I was in a 6th through 12th grade school, so I have a little experience with middle school. It was intimidating at first, but I figured it out, and they were great. Last year was also the first year I've actually had other teachers come on board and use Seesaw with me, and thus now I've had a little experience of having students who have had multiple classes on Seesaw, so we can address that right now. So when you log in, I used to use the QR code, and being that the students are middle school through high school, they pretty much now all have email, but it does work when you have multiple teachers using Seesaw at the same school. You would have to use the email version so that they could just have all their classes listed on their one account. So otherwise, you can go through the Seesaw links to get some help on which login would be better for you. So why Seesaw? I use a lot of technology and have not found an app as fluid as Seesaw. So Seesaw also offers enough options to encourage the 6 C's. That's something that we focused on in my last district, and is something that I think we just focus on as teachers. So without making the teacher, a busy teacher, feel really overwhelmed, Seesaw has just been, I mean, I can't use the word, but fluid really just comes to mind. Like, that's basically how it's been. And we use OneNote, and it doesn't really have the kind of options that Seesaw has, and the students agree. It's a great place. We use it every day. My main concern, having so many students come through my room every day, being in high school, is did he or she learn the material or skill? how can I observe and verify learning? Those are the main questions I ask because they're in and then they're out. 49-minute classes or 50-minute classes. And some teachers will have block scheduling, but it's still the same amount of students and the amount of workload, and you're just wondering, are they picking up the things you need them to pick up? So I find that Seesaw is really useful as a teaching tool. I stop and think about the students and the curriculum. The questions I ask myself is, will they find it useful? Is it useful for teaching the content that I'm trying to provide? Am I giving them enough opportunities to engage, connect, explore with the content, explore the content? How much instruction is necessary to get the students to use the app? If you don't find it user-friendly and it gets overwhelming, then you get a huge level of frustration. So we want to make sure that we use apps that have, not a huge steep learning curve. So I use a lot of technology, so I try to incorporate it little by little as they go starting out the year. So depending on how much technology you use, if this will be the main app, then it's easy to incorporate day one. So I also think about what skills do they have when they get here, and this is the whole middle school through high school, things you studied in educational psychology about where are they right now, what can they do, what should they be learning before they leave high school. So these are the things I think about, and Seesaw is a great platform. Skills to enhance in this age group, like I said, are the 6 C's: creativity, communication, organization, critical thinking, and citizenship. And we'll talk about all the pros and cons. Well, there's really not any cons that I can mention, actually. So there's a lot of pros of using Seesaw in this scenario. So this looks crazy, and I think this is what overwhelms a lot of teachers when they look at Seesaw. They say there's just so much to do, and I just say, start small. So every year I just add a new feature that Seesaw offers. Maybe I'll use 1 or 2 the first year, and then I'll add a couple more the next year, and then you'll see the things that work with your classes. And of course it changes every year with the 150 or so students that we get. Every year the classes are different. So you can see where it will benefit you. But you can see the 6 C's are pretty much found in all over the Seesaw. So I'll go through some of these features, and activities will come at the end, but it's a new feature. It talks about organizing work, which is a big problem with middle school through high school, managing 7 classes. So that's why Seesaw, again, is a great platform, and if all the teachers were using it, it would be super helpful for kids to know the one resource they can go to. Seesaw also helps with scaffolding curriculum, which is important because now we're getting into the levels of content that are digging a little bit deeper, asking the students to do more critical thinking, higher levels of Bloom taxonomy. So you do want to think about those things and see how Seesaw can help you scaffold the curriculum. So let's get into what we do when we're posting submissions. The big green button makes it very clear on what a teacher will be doing. So you can share activities, which is a new feature this year. You can just post to the student journal, and then sending announcements is also new, but has been a great place for now to have students access any information you want to add to classes. I know there's a lot of apps out there where you can send reminders to students and things like that, but as a high school teacher, this is a great location, and our school requires that we have a website that we maintain. This is kind of the place where I pretty much post everything, and so the kids know where to go. We use Seesaw like a verb. So the big green plus button makes it obvious where students and teachers can add to the feed. It's a great jumping off point for teachers. You just want to pick one thing you want to do, just maybe focus on posting the student journal and just kind of do a free form all year as your first year, that's fine. But you can start with directed prompts in the general feed, have students only add comments if you don't want them to actually post their own information. Instead of rote memorization, we want students to construct and reconstruct knowledge. So you'll hear me say that again probably later, because that's kind of where we're at middle school and high school. Just construct knowledge, reconstruct knowledge based on what you're learning and what you're experiencing. So a teacher-created post can also be something that you can do, and students can create posts. So there's both options there. It's not just for students to post things. And you'll see some examples that I'll provide in a second. What else on this page? Let me see. So here's one of the main things that I use, the photo and video. So if you click on Post to a Student Journal, which is one of the three options, or when students add responses to the activities added by the teachers, these 6 options are available. You have photo, video, drawing, adding file, note, and link. I use the top 3 the most, photo, video, and drawing. With the photo, you can take one or use a photo from the camera roll. If you have laptops at your school, the laptops usually can take photos, which I've been using a lot lately, just so that the photos are on the computers that the students are using. You can, with the photo option, you can't see it very clearly here, but these 3 options, one says rotate, record your voice, draw on the photo, label the photo, and add a caption to the photo. I've used the photo option as a way for students to demonstrate current level of mastery if prompted to provide photo evidence of in-class work, since they can draw, label, add caption, or voice. So kids who can verbalize more than they can write, or vice versa, kids who write better than they can verbalize. This still gives them lots of options to explain their thought processes and rationalizations. They can observe peer work in a virtual gallery walk. It's a great bonus for students who are absent physically or mentally during class. You can keep the work in a digital journal, which is what it's advertised for originally, is just keeping this as a student journal. And I know a lot of elementary teachers who use it simply for that reason. It's a good place for reflection and review. So I've noted that how to, at the bottom here, add multiple photos, links from Seesaw, and I'm covering it up right now, but you can see that there's a link on there if you wanted to click on it later, or you can just go to the Seesaw website. But it allows students to post multiple photos if they're doing something, so that you don't clog up the feed with tons and tons of photos. So sometimes if I'm doing an activity, I'll suggest that students do one photo, and I'll have to give them some directive so that they understand what the purpose is, what I'm looking for, like what kind of learning goal did they meet that day. And so the basic use, you can also do just take photos and add feed to put notes. So I do have students who will take a picture and post it on Seesaw just so that they have it, and that, you know, it does offer it to other students, but they're actually adding to their own digital portfolio. So they take notes about what's happening in class. I like to post practice problems. So this is an example of kind of both notes and practice problems for students to solve on the board. It can be recorded, universally accessed. This allows an assortment of ways to approach a problem, so kids can see that if someone does number 4, number 6, or number 8, and they can see how students approached it differently. Students can caption how they went through the problem, or they can even do a voiceover so they can tell you how they solved the problem. There's no need to give constant quizzes, because I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, do they know it? Are there any misconceptions? Are they solving the problem? Are they using what kind of processes? What are the common mistakes? All these things that you constantly want to ask yourself, you just post a prompt on Seesaw, or a picture like this, or an actual PDF file, which I'll talk about later, is another option. And you can see what they know, what their current level of mastery is. So, and a key skill that students pick up by doing this method is they actually learn to identify mistakes in works that they might make, or they'll see how their peers do things and then they'll catch themselves, or they might find a mistake that a peer makes on a post and they can offer constructive feedback. So Seesaw presents situations to teach students digital citizenship, which is huge for this generation. So especially the part where they have to accept peer comments, good or bad. And we talk about what is constructive, so it's not a negative comment, but more of a constructive comment. So the overall outcome is what I love about Seesaw, is that digital citizenship piece. So I say a lot that kids they Snapchat, and Snapchat has kind of ruined how they look at what's presented in front of them. So it's kind of in their mind, then out their mind, versus now they have to go back and figure out, how does this help me? How is this important? Prompts is one of my things that I do pretty commonly, pretty weekly, I guess is how I do it. So you get the conversation started. This is what we need to pull out. Students get a little bit more concerned about peer criticism, so they don't like to talk as much. You get some kids who are overly chatty, and you get some kids who are pretty quiet. So these prompts on Seesaw will get the kind of conversation started. I can present them. I teach chemistry, so I present things as chem catalysts or observation decks where I just want them to tell me what they think. So you can ask students to all post simultaneously. You can see some of the things that they've written. A class discussion can ensue after students have a chance to review each other's responses. And if you do this enough, students will get over the initial anxiety of peer criticism of their response, and eventually it becomes more about what do they think. Once they learn that the teacher wants to know what they are thinking, and they know that it's kind of a quick and instinctive response, it just doesn't become about a social thing. It just becomes about a learning experience. So here are just some examples. If you do have someone post something, here are the things that they can do after they post it, these 3 little buttons. They can edit the item, they can tag people, put it in a folder if you have things organized that way, and we can even use these QR codes, which I'll show you later how we can present it. But I like the editing option. I encourage editing. I want them to modify what they are doing so that they can constantly grow on what they have. So they learn to assimilate and accommodate is how the educational psychologists refer to it when they get new information. So Seesaw is a great way of documenting this and for them to go back and modify. So I'm big on the editing. I'm also big on annotating. So I like to see pictures. I tell them that pictures say 1,000 words. So it really helps them to visualize, and it helps me see, do they really know what's happening in this beaker? Do they know that it's called a beaker? Can they tell me the things that they've learned? In the caption, when I read the caption, I can immediately tell if a student has picked up the learning goal or is still struggling with just the first level of mastery, which is just knowing what's in front of them, but not really connecting it to the learning goal. So the annotation is, you can see, I encourage annotating in their own way, and everyone's a little different. You know, some people need the outlining, and some people write a lot. So again, it's a digital citizenship where we're teaching them about being succinct about what you've learned, really getting to the point, and not adding a lot of fluff. Just tell me what you know. So it identifies pretty much everything about their level of comprehension. So it's another example of when you can post an image. So these are called wish bottles, but they're just 5-gallon water bottles. But this image was blank. So it just had the 2 bottles in there, and then we did a demo, and they had to write down what they saw and the difference between the 2 different fuels that we use to light the fires. So this gives me a nice idea of, do they know the processes that are occurring? And on the right side, you can see another example of, you know, here's something that they're seeing in class. And even though I teach science, this applies to pretty much any activity that you're doing, and you can see if students are understanding and where they're understanding and where they're still having misconceptions or misunderstandings. We call that in education verbalizing your thinking, and it's true. I mean, this is another way to let students tell me what they know without having to have a class stare at them while they're trying to speak at, during class and make them feel uncomfortable. This is a very safe location for them to do it. If you note down here, parents can also view student work. So this connects parents to what we're doing in class. I've actually had parents who request, if their student fails to bring home the sheet that allows them to have access, they have actually requested it because they know that this is one way for them to help their child, especially if their child has some accommodations where they have to have some support. And if parents don't have this connection to class, they don't really know what's going on. But having Seesaw allows them to see on whatever day you use it, they can see what you were doing that day and kind of ask their child questions about it to get their student to really comprehend the material and be able to communicate it. So it's really been great in that sense. Collaboration is another piece, and we don't have to worry about sharing data anymore. We don't have to worry about looking at class data and trying to get everyone to put information there. The collaboration piece is huge for a lot of, well, all subject areas. So it gives it, like I said, it's a platform for creating open discussion. And so it's I tell the students, use your voice, and it doesn't have to be this verbal idea. It can be written, it can be drawn in pictures. So the collaboration piece, I've used this in Socratic seminars. If the intergroup is in a dialogue, Seesaw's open. I can post things and prompts, and then they can actually have a conversation on Seesaw. And so they can produce their own voice, they can produce opinions on there and not feel like they're being judged. It's kind of an open forum. And I've used this to put in some ideas of how does it apply to your life, what we're learning in class, because Seesaw is available outside of classrooms, so it kind of opens the classroom walls to the world. And so I was at a Korean barbecue one time, and I posted something about fuels that they were using at the barbecue, and I had this picture so they can see where I was, so they can make some connections. So it's a great place for prompts. And this is a student. She was curious about something that we were doing in class, and then it made her think about something else that it brought her attention to. So she was like, I wonder about this when we were talking about this content. And she, on her own, decided to post something on Seesaw regarding the topic. So, and then the other students began to add comments to it. So again, great place for conversation. Collages are nice. Now that we have the multiple photo option, that's great too. But this is the age group where they really have to learn how to make comparisons and see patterns. So the collages are very helpful in understanding processes and how they apply to data, understanding processes and what are you looking at and seeing if there's any common features. So I really like using Seesaw it demonstrates their mastery level, it demonstrates their comprehension, but it also just shows that they are making progress throughout the year. You can see that the growth in their Seesaw captions. This is my husband's video, and this is what he uses in his Spanish class. So he teaches Spanish, and he's found it really useful for quick feedback. And that was his comment was, what I really like is that I could look at students' work and I can see that they are meeting the level of the learning goal that day, or I could see where they are because this is the individual work that's being produced, and students can comment and collaborate. They can do a lot of things. So here's another video that is about it's a few minutes long, but the video basically you can hear what students are saying. So they don't even know when they're recording that they're actually having conversations. So it kind of worked out where I can actually hear the conversation that they're having as they're video taping whatever the activity is or the lab procedure is. And I've learned a lot of interesting things that kids are picking up on and common misconceptions that I need to address. So the video works out in those ways as well. Class size issues. When I'm working with students and I give them an activity like this where they have to build something and then show me how things relate to the topic, this is polarity, I can be working with students on one side of the room and then actually accepting posts from other students on the other side, and then noting when I see things that they need to fix or things that they might be missing or things where there might be error, misconceptions, and I can immediately address it. So even with a huge class size, the students are actively working, they're engaged, they love the art part of it, the drawing and the assembling posts piece, but it's been great with working with bigger classes. So here's some other features which I'm just going to go through quick. You can add files. I add files when I'm subbing, when I have a sub for myself. So I've actually videotaped myself giving instruction. I've posted the PDF files. I post practices on here, and students can make comments and actually work through the practices. The drawing's great for lots of different reasons, but the drawing options are available, and they can speak through these drawing options. They can also speak through writing notes on these note cards. So the note option has been great. And the links, with everything being technology driven and online, there's so many resources, but students like to share resources they find that works for them, which is great for all the different learning styles. I can post links when I find great videos. But this is the new feature that kids are asking me for. They're actually asking me to create activities so when they post it, all the student work is in one place, and I can tell immediately who has not responded yet that I would have to address. Oh, hey, don't forget that I need to see like what you've learned today, or what your response is to this prompt. But the students really enjoy having everything located in one spot. So this has been great You can customize your own. You can use some that Seesaw has in their library. Let's see. But this has been awesome. So the activity actually goes up on the feed, but it shows all the class at the same time. Calendar, you got students absent in high school, middle school, you miss one day of class, you feel like you're behind days. Students can actually go and click on the day they were absent. This works if they're reviewing for a semester final. They can go back to September and kind of relive some of the photos and videos and posts, and then it kind of jogs their memory because it's really about making connections. And so Seesaw's been great with the calendar option. So you can organize everything this way, and you can see how many items have been posted, and you can change the dates. Communicating with parents and students, so you can send students messages, you can send them both messages, you can send parents announcements. So parents who have been attached to Seesaw have been rewarded with being able to say, oh, I kind of know what's going on in that classroom. This QR code you can make for different submissions. Any submission you can make a QR code. So I have a curiosity board where I post some things that I want the students to come back to, or I thought was a great submission and kind of overall reaches the big idea, so that might help kids. So the curiosity board is based off of the Seesaw posts. And I know I rushed through a whole bunch of ideas, but I appreciate you listening, and hopefully this was helpful.
Jenny, you did such an awesome job and had so many great ideas to share. I actually have one really great question for you from Jen. She sees how much your students are writing on their photos and is curious if they're using any kind of stylus or just their finger.
Some are using stylus, and we only have laptops. So we have some iPads available as well, but we've been having issues linking them because of our district issues with accepting certain apps. But they have all been using either a stylus or just their fingers. Some type that you can title on the pictures, so you actually don't even have to draw on there if you wanted to write titled captions. So this year, most of the students are using titles to label, I guess labels really, on the pictures. Last year, the kids had one-to-one, so they had touchscreen, so they're probably using more stylus. So those ones that were very specific were probably students who had the ability to use a stylus. But so if you have iPads, you can use stylus.
That's some great insight on that, because my students were always on one-to-one iPads, and so we just wrote with our fingers all the time. But I do realize that if you're on any other kind of laptop or Chromebook, you probably aren't doing as much drawing with a finger or whatever. But yeah, those labels, when you click that T and type those words as labels that you can then move around, that's really handy too for annotating an image. That's a good question. Somebody else was interested in the calendar view. I just want to remind everybody that you can take your regular Seesaw feed or stream and kind of toggle it over to calendar view, and that's part of free Seesaw. So if you've never looked for that button, look for that at the top of your journal. It just takes what you normally think of as scrolling through like as a feed and puts it in that calendar view that Jenny was just showing. We have another minute or so, so if you have a question for Jenny, you can type it in. In the meantime, Jenny, can you go to the next slide, and I'll talk just real briefly about Seesaw for Schools. If you're interested after what you've heard tonight in kind of checking out our Seesaw for Schools product, you can click the link that's there in the slide. That's the way that some schools choose to build a comprehensive record of their student learning. So free Seesaw will always be free, but you can get some other ways to get data and to track student progress through Seesaw for Schools. So if you have someone interested in that, reach out and click that link there. That will help you. And then if you go to the next slide, I'll just show you some other ways that you can connect with our Seesaw community. Obviously, you've joined us tonight for PD in your PJs, so you know how to do that. But I do want to remind you that we have Twitter live chats, Seesaw chats on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month. The next one's actually coming up December 14th. We're kind of on a holiday schedule now, but December 14th will be the last live Seesaw chat of 2017. And then you can see the link for ideas.seesaw.me there towards the left of the screen. That's where you can find a lot of those getting started resources. A question's coming in from Megan about Seesaw compared to Google Classroom. I can answer a little bit of that, and then I'll let Jenny weigh in if she has some perspective. I think of Google Classroom as a course management or learning management tool. Seesaw is your student journal or your student portfolio. So I used both in my ELA classroom, and students obviously typed their papers in Google and used Google tools for that. But then we added some of those to Seesaw because that's how we were connected to our families and parents. So, I mean, you can use them both. They're both just different parts of your digital workflow.
Yeah, I
Do you have
agree.
any perspective on that?
Yeah, it's really, I tried using Google Classroom earlier this year, and it's a great place if you wanted to submit, bigger documents or have students submit work. But if you're looking at just something to use as a tool for formative assessment so you can keep track of student learning on a daily and weekly basis, the Seesaw I found is definitely the most fluid. There's more options for students on how they're going to demonstrate their comprehension with all those, the photos, the digital, the notes, links. I mean, there's just more options on Seesaw. So I've just used Seesaw more for like more formative assessments. If you did use Google Classrooms, I can see it being more for submissions.
Absolutely. That I would say the same. And Google Classroom isn't necessarily going to have a way for you to easily connect with family members, even though you can share documents and things. And then you're also not going to have a built-in camera or video camera or audio recording tool or anything like that. So if you really want to let people peek into your classroom, and that was really transformative for me as someone who taught big kids for many years, but had never really connected that way with families, Seesaw is really the perfect tool for that. I think we have one more question coming in before it's time to go. I don't have a great answer for this one, Jenny, but maybe you will. Megan is asking how you would compare Seesaw to Explain Everything as far as the recording part. I didn't use Explain Everything, so I don't know if I know the perfect answer for that.
What do you mean explain everything?
Well, it's capital E, capital E. It's like the name of an app, Explain Everything. Yeah, so maybe you don't use it either. So I don't know if we can help you much, Megan, but reach out to our community, though, if you we have a Seesaw teachers group on Facebook for 6th through 8 and for high school teachers. So maybe you could connect there and ask that question, and then maybe somebody would know that answer for you. Okay, well, I don't have any more questions coming in. So I just want to thank Jenny so much for her time and giving us so many great ideas in her slides. Remember, those are coming your way in an email. And I hope the rest of you will join us again sometime soon for PD. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.